Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another Woodbrew video. My name is Dylan, and over the last couple of videos, my wife Molly and I have been putting together our brand new Avid CNC. This is a 5x5 CNC machine, and in the first video, we actually assembled everything. In the second video, we went ahead and built the horizontal table on the top, and in today's video, we're going to be building the vertical table. Now, in our last video, we had a whole slew of questions about some of the terminology I was using and just some of the concepts. So in the very first part of this video, I'm going to kind of go over, oh, would you like to be in the video, ma'am? Come here. Oh. Okay. So I guess another member of the family wanted to be in this intro as well. This is Luna. This is our rescue pup, and she keeps me company in the shop. Now, I started this project a couple days ago, and the first task was to surface one side of the spoil board because I wanted it to be perfectly flat. So unfortunately, I had to go ahead and screw down right into my brand new table. But you know what? That's what a spoil board is for. So I went ahead and screwed down my piece of MDF and did one flattening pass on one side. And then actually, which is an unusual thing to do, I flipped the board over and I went ahead and surfaced the other side. And the reason I wanted to do both sides surfaced is because it's incredibly important that it is consistently flat on both sides, because unlike the horizontal surface, when I flatten the top at the end, I won't be able to do that once it's attached to the front of the machine. So if it's not already a consistent thickness, it's actually going to be sort of a trapezoid shape or parallelogram. I don't know. It's going to have inconsistencies on the face that I won't be able to get out. So it's really important that I take every measure to make sure that it's perfectly flat going into it. Now, unfortunately, as you will have seen in the last clip, I ran into one of those screws on my next tool path for cutting out the slots for the TTrack. And it just totally slipped my mind to think about, checking for the screws, because the screws are so hidden. I wasn't even looking. I didn't even notice that I had put screws in it. And I just started the next tool path and I ruined, and I do mean ruined, about a $90 bit, which is definitely a learning lesson. Not fun to do, was not happy about that. But you know what? I'm brand new to this whole CNC thing, and that's bound to happen at some point. And all I can say is I'm glad I had the emergency stop nearby. I was able to stop it, and nothing catastrophic happened other than just a broken off tip of a $90 bit, which still hurts a little bit saying. Now, it also unfortunately mangled up my board pretty well, and I thought about turning the board around and putting that mangled bit at the bottom, but then I found out that it was going to be over a mounting hole, which is far more important than the TTrack slot being pretty. So I went ahead and ran another toolpath using a 1/4 inch Astra-coated bit from Bits and Bits, which is definitely what I'm going to replace this one that I just destroyed with. So I guess there's a bit of silver lining. I'm going to upgrade that bit to something from Bits and Bits, because their products have been phenomenal in my opinion, and I'll leave a link in the description below if you're interested in checking out the bit that we're using in today's video. But anyway, I am using a 1/4 inch bit instead of a 1/2 inch bit, so I had to change a few things up in the tool paths to accommodate that. But now here we are. We have our TTrack slots cut. I have all of my TTrack cut and prepared, and this has been so far up to this point very similar to last week's video where we made the horizontal table. So now I'm going to go ahead and glue in my TTrack, and then I'm going to get my second layer glued down. You'll notice that this front vertical table is only going to be 2 layers thick instead of 3 like the horizontal table is. And now it's time to do the glue up, which ended up being the worst glue up I've had in a couple years, actually. This was very bad. So it started off pretty well. I was trying to use a Bondo spreader and spread the glue out, but I'm also trying to keep the glue out of the TTrack, which I did not successfully do. And then all of a sudden it started tacking off way faster than I thought it would. Now, I don't know if, well, I do know. This wood glue, this red Titebond, this is one of their it's not nearly as good with water. It's basically not waterproof at all or water resistant. And it also kicks off much faster than other glues. So in the future, or if you plan on doing this, I highly recommend using a glue that has a longer working period, maybe Titebond 3 or some form of epoxy, or just a glue that has a longer working time, because I was running around trying to keep the glue wet and getting it slapped all into the grooves, and then I would have to go back, and oh, it was just a nightmare. And then to top it off, I put the second piece on the wrong direction, had to take it back off, turn it around. It was just a nightmare glue up, but thankfully it turned out okay in the end, and I added a couple of temporary screws in there just to keep everything together and make sure it clamped down good and tight, and we got a good glue bond, as well as I made sure those screws were out of the way this time and I won't hit them with the CNC. So I am happy to say there's a bit of a redemption from the glue up, and that the slots went really well, and I actually cut them a little differently than I did with the horizontal table. On the horizontal table, I used a pocket toolpath, and on this vertical table, I used 2 separate line vectors, and I did a profile cut on them instead, and that was actually a big efficiency boost. I know I actually talked about that in the first video, but I ended up changing it up on this because I was able to go out past the end. But regardless, that worked really, really well, and these slots turned out perfectly. With those slots out of the way, it was time to move on to the dog holes and the mounting holes, and both of those are through cuts. So I ended up adding a piece of hardboard. It's a 1/4 of an inch-ish, and I just slid it under the board, and what that's gonna allow me to do is cut all the way through without going into my spoil board. Now, it's okay to go into the spoil board, but when you have the ability to use a sacrificial board like that, it just makes a lot of sense. And I actually have 2 pieces of that laying around for varying size pieces like this one. So for cutting the dog holes, I actually wanted to switch bits, and I went with a 3/8 inch bit. It's actually like the cousin bit of the 1/4 inch that we just had in. It is the same Bits and Bits Astra coated bit, except for it's 3/8 of an inch. And it has an upcut spiral instead of a downcut spiral. Now when cutting the dog holes, I actually just went in a profile tool path, and it's in a spiral ramp, which just means it kind of goes down and around at the same time, and it makes a really smooth, very quick and efficient job of doing these dog holes, and they turned out really great. Now for cutting the mounting holes, it starts off with essentially the exact same tool path as the dog hole, except for it doesn't go all the way through, and then it steps out a bit, and it creates the second tool path, which creates this entire big pocket. And then the last tool path in creating the mounting holes is a simple profile cut in the bottom using the 3/8 inch bit to create a slot that's fully cut through and goes into our hardboard, the sacrificial hardboard, so that we create our mounting hole slots. And at this point, it was basically done, and I feel like I had a little bit of redemption. It went fairly smoothly. I did run into about 8 of my screw holes when cutting these mounting holes, so thankfully this time I did remember to remove the screws. Now with these mounting holes done, it's now time I can take it off and actually mount it to the table. And so to do that, I actually clamped some boards onto the bottom aluminum extrusion just to give myself some place to rest this on. And it just so happens that it aligns with that bottom extrusion, so it more or less gets this vertical table exactly where I want it. I just have to shift it left to right a bit to get it lined up with the center. And that was a lot easier than I thought it would be. I just used a square to align the 2 slots, and I'm not 100% sure yet whether or not this is perfectly aligned. I won't know that until I start cutting things and playing around in software. I may have to make some adjustments there. I used a Sharpie on the inside of the mounting hole just while I had it up there and clamped in place, just to give myself locations to put the roll-in T-nuts, which I did next. And that all went really smoothly, and I was able to attach this vertical table with really no hiccups. The next main direction that I need to actually check and see if it's aligned is whether or not this table is square to the horizontal table. So horizontal and vertical table are actually, fully perpendicular to each other is really important. And in order to do that, I just used a framing square, but because I oversized my vertical table, it set proud of the horizontal table. It was a little bit higher. And so before I could actually do any of that, I needed to flatten just this front section here to make it perfectly aligned with the top horizontal. And all I did was put in my spoil board bit. I zeroed to the machine bed, and then I just set the spindle height at 0 using just Mach 4, and I just turned on the spindle and literally jogged it at the correct jog speed rate and just cut it out manually. I didn't write a tool path or do anything like that. I just needed to do basically a one pass this way. I did learn my lesson though, and I came back over it and I got some burning, so I should have lifted up and come back and then gone again. But that's perfectly smooth and worked out really, really well. And somehow or another, this was just someone being nice to me for all the mishap with the glue. This thing is more or less perfectly square, which is phenomenal. That says so much to this machine, I think, and the aluminum extrusions. And I mean, I have to give myself a little bit of credit because it means that I did make this aluminum extrusion all sort of collinear as well, so parallel and square and all these things, because it's mounted directly to those. So if it was out of square, it would be because of these aluminum extrusions. But also it could be because of when I was flattening this, you know, the machine not running correctly. But this thing is square within 1/1000th of an inch over 16 inches, which is, you know, I don't know what that is per inch. But nevertheless, it is plenty square for any of the things that I want to do. If I wanted to get it perfect, all I would have to do is put a 1/1000th or 2/1000th, I'd have to figure that out, at the very bottom underneath the mounting hole, and I'd make this thing perfectly. And you know what, maybe I will. Maybe I will when I am bored off camera, but as of right now, that is going to be plenty good enough for me, because that is more accurate than basically every other tool in my shop. So whatever I do with whatever comes off of this machine, this is going to be way more square than I could ever make literally anything else in here. So it's kind of pointless to go too crazy with it. But yeah, I am very happy with the way that this turned out, and I'm more happy that it wasn't really cumbersome and difficult to get it, you know, set up in the end. It was really quite simple to do this. Now, I've been playing around with some clamp design ideas. You may have seen those in the beginning. They're 3D printed clamps. I'm not ready to just like divulge all the information on them yet, because I'm still working on the design, and there's some ideas I have of ways to make them a little better, and they're just rough around the edges, but the concept's there. They're going to be able to do some alignment and clamping using these T-slot slots here, which is the whole reason for this design. So anyway, yeah, I've run out of time this week, so this is all you get this week, but in the near future, I'll actually show using this and how to set it up. I have some jigs and fixtures and other things that I need to get dialed in, and I just don't have enough time to do that this week. So you'll see that in some upcoming videos. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I think it turned out really, really well. I'm so happy to finally have this machine set up, dialed in, and ready to have some awesome stuff created on it, which we have plans for. And I also wanted to let you guys know before I hop off of here that we have a lot of content coming, like an insane amount of content. I'm not going to elaborate too much on that, but we are doing a sort of a challenge to ourselves to build a large entertainment center in 7 days. So in the coming week or two, that is going to start, and we're going to have daily videos for 7 days while building that. So if you haven't already subscribed, be ready for that. And we also have 2 other huge things in the pipeline behind that one that are going to be awesome, one of which is a camper build. So thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate all the support, all the comments, everything that you guys have done. I mean, it's what's helped us get to this point in our business. It is insane that this is sitting in our shop. Molly would tell me I'm rambling on and I need to stop, but I'm unsupervised today filming myself, so I can make this outro go as long as I want.